share the discussion. If you allow me, I'll continue. I'll continue sharing, and thank you, Tuli, for letting people in for me. Thank you so much. Okay, all right. Thank you, Revatai. I think that is the discussion. You are here representing Boka, but also representing the interest of the NSAs. What you see happening, and also, like you said, and women sport Botswana because at the end of the day, after this discussion, you need to be able to have recommendations in what okay. What are you doing to advance gender equality issues more in karate, both as a leader and as an individual?
Oh, thank you very much. As the president of the Botswana Karate Association, I'm doing a lot, and taking advantage of the position is very influential. In the past or currently, the policies are not favorable to women, including the constitution. But at the same time, where there's a will, you'll always find a way of working around the hurdles that are there. We have taken a decision as the executive committee to ensure that all the structures there's a woman, and these are technical areas and also administrative areas. As an example, within the Referees Commission, for example, when we started in 2017, the entry level into the technical commission was that somebody has to have a regional qualification, but by then there was no lady who had that qualification. However, we talked to our members to waive that requirement. Right now, we have women who are Africa qualified and are sitting in the Referees Commission. The Development Commission is headed by a lady as well, for the first time in history of karate. She's leading most of the men in the development of sport. The other issue that is very crucial is to ensure they get to represent karate in the international community. As an example, we have the National Safeguarding Officer, she reports directly to the World Karate Federation without going through the president. And she's the only lady throughout the world. We are trying harder to ensure that they are represented. In all the teams that go outside, in all the camps, there should be a lady. That is what we are doing at the moment. Emma.
Thank you so much, Erra. Mihela, what is the impact of what you are doing? You mentioned for the different committees. Impact that exactly Miss contributing in achieving gender equality in our sport.
The impact is that we are starting to change the rules. We are revisiting the constitutions. We are revisiting the policies to make sure that they are gender sensitive, and they allow, especially because most of the ladies that are lowly, they don't have qualifications. We work so much and the they are not highly graded people in terms of belts. So we are revisiting our rules and regulations, and especially more so that we had formed the Women's Commission, which ensures for all the laws, all the regulations, they are included. Mehera, everything now, in a long run, it will ensure that women are taken care of. Right now, we are pushing for Women's Commission to be enshrined into the Constitution instead of it being an ad hoc committee or the issues of women forever and ever. That's what we are doing at the moment.
Thank you. BNS is intentional they have interest in the appetite. That's the word you use to in trying to drive the gender equality mandate. My question is, BNS is largely made up of borre, especially at the board level. So how are they contributing at the board to making sure we are driving the mandate to ours? We are implementing all the declaration that we signed, Bo IWG Brighton plus Helsinki declaration. We are implementing the legacy that IWG left here, all other, and the Habrun declaration. How are they contributing to that effectively?
I think I would not be out of line to say that the current board, even though you have 3 women sitting versus a composition of total of 11 board members, the current board has given sort of a blank check to say, how do we want to position WASPO? How do you want to empower WASPO that it gets to a point that it is not seen as something within the secretariat of the BNSC, but it is seen as having a role beyond lobbying, but to actually hold Botswana Sports accountable, to even audit Botswana Sports to say, are we really doing much in those specific areas that you spoke about, Hami? You spoke about the Helsinki Declaration, you spoke about the Gaborone Declaration. We have outcomes out of the IWG that we hosted in 2018, where we have key deliverables that we have to achieve as a country to build onto the momentum, the Helsinki Declaration. So I would say that the men that we currently have in the board are really open to giving us a blank check. And I believe that the conversations that we are having with WASPO, it's really to the effect that how do we get WASPO to be a bit more empowered, that it does not become a subdivision within the secretariat, but rather a proper lobby group, a proper institution that can insist and hold Botswana Sports accountable for those aspects that we are signatory to. I think the other point that I want to pick in terms of how the board has tried to make sure that from a participation and inclusion point of view, we have the women's voice, even though it's only 3 voices, our voices are well spread out within the various functions of the Sports Commission. I'll start with the subcommittee that has been included, equity and recreation. The equity subcommittee is looking specifically at gender mainstreaming and making sure that we're inclusive in our programs, we're inclusive in our strategies. This committee is chaired by a woman. It is intentional that it's chaired by a woman because it was very important that we've got at least 2 women sitting in that committee from the board to guide and to advise the board on those issues. We also have another very key subcommittee, which is the Sports Development Committee, which is also chaired by a woman. And I mentioned that because the Sports Development Committee is where we are going to be talking about the codes, what are they supposed to be doing from a national team point of view, from a development point of view. So we're able to check, because then we are present in that meeting to check if we are looking at a program like the Elite Scholarship, for instance, and we're looking at the names that are on the table, how many girls do we have there versus how many boys? So those are the questions that we've started now asking to say, if you're going to bring a list of athletes that you want us to consider for these elite and these developmental programs, and you have a skew towards the boy, and that disadvantages the girl. So I'm saying this to just demonstrate that from an inclusion point of view, we are involved in all the conversations. We have a woman sitting in the finance committee where the money decisions are made, and we have a woman also sitting in the international games, so that we can be sure that when we compete, we're able to check that indeed the girls are and women are represented in all the aspects of the Sports Commission.
Okay, thank you, Ma. I think but you've been given a blank check, which gives a what you think needs to be done in order to assist the women to drive the mandate. But I'm also interested in knowing on that, based on that blank check, where is the individuals or from the board as besides the blank check as individuals, what are they doing? Do they have anything that they're doing to drive the mandate besides the 2 women that we talked about?
In the rest of the board members?
If you go back to the topic, we are mostly interested in men advancing. Yeah. They can do it through, like you just said right now, and also through doing something. So I'm happy with what you're giving us me now, and I'm also want to understand the other level. What as individuals, as leaders, as boarding, do they have any projects, anything that they are initiating to show the interest in women's issues?
Definitely there is. And I think one of the things that I like is that they hold us accountable to the effect that what can we do to help? They actually pause to ask, are we positioning properly? Are we involving you in this process? Because we know, Rame, sometimes as women, we can tend to, and women leaders, sometimes we can tend and sit back. But what I like about the board is that they coax us to come up with ideas, and they coax us to input ideas, and they're very supportive of ideas, over and above them coming up with initiatives and ideas that they think that could help. I mean, one of the conversations that we had was, we did not do much as a sports commission, for instance, in terms of the Women's Month and advancing the agenda for the girl child. So it was a conversation that we are having, and we are holding ourselves as a collective, that to say that we did not do much as a commission to really push the agenda. Like, currently, the agenda is being pushed. The BNOC was pushing the agenda, but as a commission, we did realize that we did not do much to push that conversation. So that is the kind of reminders that we keep for ourselves to say, what are we doing to push that conversation? One of the conversations that we're also having is to say, how do we ensure that, and you earlier on mentioned on the stride that we've made as the women's movement, and the negation that COVID is going to have. You mentioned 3 steps. I actually think we've gone 20, even 50 steps back from where we were in terms of advancing the gender issue. So one of the conversations that we're having is, how do we ensure that we look at currently we have very few sporting codes that are ready to go back to playing. How do we ensure that as we try and help codes get back to training and to playing, we are intentional, especially on the female codes? And that's something that we are looking into, to make sure that the female codes are also able to go back to playing. And you don't have an instance where you only have one code going back to playing, and the majority of the codes that are going back to playing are the male-dominated codes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Emma. A lot of things that they are doing at BNSC level. Lona at Boca or probably at NSA, do you feel that the impact they are throwing on body plus the board itself, like one impact in help, especially that you have shown you started a lot of projects in Boca. You are intentional about achieving gender equality in Botswana Karate?
Emma, thank you very much. In terms of regulations, the BNSC, I think, is doing very well. In terms of when we submit a national team, they will want to see women being there. When we submit development programs, they will want to see ladies being there. And however, I think a room for improvement is to ensure that they train the men, because most of the male presidents, they are still skeptical when it comes to development of women. And I know you know what I'm talking about. You know, when a woman is campaigning against male, so it's a difficult thing. Mehera, that is the one area that I think BNSC should engage us on.
Yeah, what do you think could be the problem, Honeho? Why is it difficult for women to like being part of the campaign for women? And let's take example for Bokoni Fela. The good thing you are also active at the time. So why wouldn't Bokoni Fela as a women's group have support Aborre?
Hey, o bona borre ke batho ba re tshoga ka bonako. You need to be gentle with us, to be frank. And we have always known Hore Bokhoni Hela is going to have difficulties because of the way they were very aggressive on us. So we tend to push back and then wonder what is going to happen. It's just the nature of men. That's why we need to train men because for us to relinquish that power, you need to have trained us very well first. Then that's when we can accommodate you. And yeah, I think let's take that
I'm
approach.
happy with that. I'm happy with your response because for the first time, one of you is admitting that you are scared of these women. All the time you've been told that why did they come as a group as women? They also, but today someone is admitting that you're actually taken aback. It was by surprise that they decided to go on, and they're all like they are saying. No,
No, men, we don't like surprises.
Okay, but you show her business is making the effort, and we are talking about equality, and it's more to do with numbers. What about when you go to the policies, to the processes, to the procedures? How much of work are we doing there? How much of work is BNSC showing interest in changing the policy thing to be gender sensitive? When you do your work, I have support of under this policy. This policy is talking to me as Boca. This policy is talking to me as a National Sports Association.
I think one of the gaps that do exist is that BNSC never asked for our policies so that they look into them if they are not biased. So I think is one area that they should ask for development programs. They should ask for national team selections. They should ask for the constitutions to ensure that they are not skewed towards the development of men. I've never or women, yes, or women. That's one area that I think should be taken into account, including process re-engineering of doing anything that doesn't favor women or doesn't favor men. So it's something that can be done. They can come up with a subcommittee that purely looks into policy development of sports development within the country.
Not necessarily pointing to Masebeko alone. What about BNOC support and your international federation support and WASBO support towards your work?
I'm very happy with the work that BNSC is doing, especially in terms of training our ladies. Once in a while, they will call our ladies to train them, WASBO, BNSC, and BNOC. And like I said before, when you call the ladies, you don't call us.
Okay. What about international federations?
Currently, we are still lagging behind. We are trying, but we are still lagging behind.
So you don't get much support from them?
No, not that much.
All right. Let's talk to policies, to processes, to procedures. For how are they able to support the work of WASBO especially, and also to make sure that you hold them accountable, you look into their policies as BNSC, because I think what he's saying is we need that aggressive intention so that one can say, let's audit your policies as NSA, but we can't go to NSAs when we don't even know if BNSC policies, your HR policies, yours, and all those are how are they and how much work are you doing into making sure that the process, even in BNSC, the service itself consider the fact that this is not a one size fits all.
And thank you very much for that, Khane and Rabatai, for actually calling us out on that aspect. What I can confirm is that we are working on a universal document, constitution, with the key requirements for what should be included in every of the codes that wish to affiliate with the Sports Commission. So that will be a requirement that is going to come up. But I think you are saying by extension, the Constitution alone is not the only document that is critical for the for running sports. You've got code of conduct, you've got national team selection policies, and that could also have an impact on that. I think that's something that I'll take forward with the strategy and compliance subcommittee. I wish Retsenyoho was here because he's actually chairing that to say, let's take it a step further to take governance beyond just the Constitution, because the Constitution is such it's a guiding document, but the actual individual policies, gender equity are quite important. But just to also add that we recently just gave the sexual harassment policy the green light. So I'm quite excited about that. And it will be something that the courts have to abide by to do that. But just to also speak about the point that you raised about policy development and implementation, clearly that's an area that is lacking behind, and it is lacking behind. People may have the will to be inclusive, people may have the will to be equitable, but sometimes you also have to have things that hold people accountable to say, you must have a quota system, for instance. You must get to a point where our interventions are speaking to a quota to say, if you want to run a national team, you must also have a national team for women. I mean, we saw that the Commonwealth is very, very aggressive in the numbers. They are looking at the next Commonwealth Games such that they have equal representation of women and men participating. That is the kind of intention that we need to get to as the Sports Commission, and also as the BNOC, and also as government, really, to say, how do we drive from policy? I know this is one of the things that our smart from WASBO keeps talking about, to say, yes, we can do all these things, but if the policy is not very specific, and the policy is not it's not there to be implemented to start with, then we can do all these nice things. We need the base for the policy. So that's one of the things that we really want to push as the current BNSC, to see how do we look into policy, because then you can hold people accountable. Then we can hold funds to say, until you've done 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll not be funding you. And that one of those requirements could be equitable distribution of resources in codes between men and women.
Okay. But just to get to my last question so that we can open for discussion. What are the challenges to BNSC in their quest to advance gender equality as BNSC? I know BNSC has WASBO, and most of the time but I'm happy that we are talking now as BNSC, and we are pointing issues that are coming out that are done by BNSC. I'll challenge you to say BNSC is as an entity, is a signatory IWG, so they also have a mandate for them to make sure that they implement the declaration as much as Rabatana the same mandate to implement the same declaration. I know maybe you know how you can make WASBO do that for you, but it's also a responsibility at BNSC. BNSC hosted IWG in Botswana. It's equally responsibility at BNSC to make sure that the legacy that IWG left here, BNSC make sure that they drive that legacy. So I want to know how all these things, even to make sure that we support the NSS. What are the challenges that we are facing?
I think one of the challenges that I would say we are facing is, for lack of a better word, historical, in terms of, I personally don't like how WASBO is positioned. I don't believe that WASBO should be sort of the that's a small aspect trying to work on equity. I think it should be bigger than that. I think equity should be inculcated at a basic level. Every person who works for sports should be held accountable for equity. I would like a scenario where we have KPIs that relate to equity for each and every person, especially those who are employed by sports and those who volunteer for sports, including the BNSC. So those are the things that we are trying to move forward. And I talked about a blank check. We have requested the equity committee to guide the BNSC on how we feel that equity should be structured in Botswana, because for as long as we want to segregate equity to an institution like WASBO in the current format that it is, we are doing it injustice. For me, it has to be something that is at a global level to say, Hakile, the vice chairperson of the Sports Commission, and I sit in the board. What are my KPIs? What am I supposed to deliver in terms of doing several things, including equity? I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to get at, but for me, this aspect of trying to segregate it for me, it contributes to the segregation even further. You cannot have an institution that is not well positioned and well empowered to be driving sports and then waiting for it and checking on it once in a while. I think issues of equity in sports should be at a part of the makeup of Botswana sports, because we've been talking about it for a very, very long time. And I think that we have an opportunity to actually make issues of equity at the center of our discussion. I mean, in sports, we talk about putting the athletes at the center of our discussions. We have to do the same things in sports, not just put the athletes, but put equity and athletes at the center of our discussion, as opposed to just looking into a small organization like WASBO trying to push that mandate. So I really think that that's where we should be the direction that we should be moving into.
So are you doing something about repositioning WASBO? And I'm glad that you also realize the challenge that comes with a blank check. Like you rightly put it, we need a frame that we used to work along. We need a plan. We need those plans in place so that we can be able to say we failed here, we managed here, we can move this. So a blank check alone wouldn't give us that. So just to tell me, are you doing something about repositioning WASBO? Because at the end of the day, WASBO is an entity on its own. Maybe it's not an issue of positioning, but it's an issue of maybe just making sure that it becomes what it's supposed to be. It is an entity, so if it can function as an entity, then it should be able to police BNSC, BNOC, and NSAs as well.
Yeah. No, that is something that we are working on.
Okay, thank you. Rabatai, these are the challenges that one of the blank check, and maybe you're uncomfortable in terms of how to know BNSC to support there's still room for improvement. What are your challenges? That you still need more from BNSC and BOAS, but what are your challenges as we try to contribute to helping women achieve their mandate?
I think the main challenge in terms of helping the ladies or the women the female, so to speak, to get to higher positions or to get into positions of authority is the issue of perception. Kana go le gantsi you'll find if you have innocent intentions of developing women, there will always be perception where better relationships with them. That is one area that needs to get off people's heads. For example, if I take a man and go for a world championship with him as a referee, it wouldn't be a problem. But if I take a lady to a world championship, then people start having different perceptions. So most of the men will rather. I think it's issues but right now I think it's much better. They're not happening at that rate. But most of the people, they don't want to get into those scenarios. You'll rather stay safe than having people to think a lot about you. So that is the main area that we need to work, not only in sports, but in Botswana in general. The corporate world, sports is the same issue. So, Emma, that is the main one.
Okay, thank you. Any question? If you have a question, you can unmute and then let's get into discussion. And if you have a question to Masebeho or to Rebatai or any comment.
Thank you, Khame. Thank you, Masebeho and Rebatai, for the insightful discussion points. I wanted to make a comment and then also ask a question to Rebatai. Yesterday we had another workshop where the facilitator indicated is something that we know, but sometimes I think we tend to forget it when we are trying to address men on the issues of gender equality, that the men's brain is designed differently from the women's brain. Men think in blocks, and sometimes when we take the gender equality approach and we want to bring more women into leadership, at that point a man might be blocked or still be in the block of protecting their position, and they have not yet moved to another block of thinking of diversity and inclusion. And now that when you talked, you highlighted that during the Bokgoni Fela, some men were a bit scared. It links with what the facilitator talked about yesterday, because it's like they were still in that block of protecting their position, securing their leadership position, and not wanting someone to come and fiddle into their leadership position. And we need creative approaches of ensuring that we move them around the blocks to another block of diversity and inclusion. On the one way, you indicated that when we host events, we are mostly targeting women and girls and we don't involve men. I wanted to ask, in terms of the packaging, how can we package the information and how can we go about it to ensure that when we talk about WASBO, a man does not think of WASBO as only a women's movement, a women's organization. Yesterday's workshop was open to all, and we had circulated invites to everyone, presidents of NSAs, including men, and we indicated and highlighted that was an open, but we still got 95% of the participants being women. So how can we package the information? How can we go about it to ensure that men attend and they realize that WASBO is not only a women's movement, we need the input of men to push gender equality?
Oh, thank you very much, Kenesi. I think the first thing to do is to change the name of WASBO, because it says women. And if we talk gender equity, we want gender equity based names. For example, we are arguing yesterday about whether we should retain the word Women's Commission or it should be changed into gender commission or something like that. The other issue that is very important is to demonstrate the benefits to men of including women into decision-making committees. Once they realize the benefits, then they can support those ideas. Without demonstrating the benefits to them, and like I said before, not being too aggressive into that space, so to speak. Just invite them, being gentle with them, share ideas with them, and they'll get to it, especially the issue of benefits. They'll get to it. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Rabatai. But I think Putso would still be relevant to this session today. It's not even a women's. It's not even a WASBO event. It's talked about men advancing gender equality, and it was open to everyone. But we still don't have men here. So, but I get your point that we need to also increase on our advocacy. Mentambi, we have the Women's Sport Africa Network chairperson here. Hello, Mentambi. Okay, any other question, any other comment? Also, kindly mute your mic.
Give me.
Oh, sorry. Sport. Sorry. Any
Yeah,
comment,
maybe,
any
Mela.
question? Emma. Emma, okay, go ahead.
So again, Secretary, the you know, the conversation between Robert Haile, Maseveho, and I think you know, the points they have raised. But then I am looking at this issue, yeah, bringing in, you know, gender equity into the picture. And to me, it says we are requiring a society to change its mindset. A society, its behavior, and its relation with women, such that it gives them a position historically. And we all know gore process ya change hela yone ka boyone ga e motho go gore e ka acceptega hela Setswana ya go tlo ke fine ya no go nteko re bata basadi le bone ba semolla gore go nna isiwa ba hiwa di position, and the whole you know, society will say okay fine a re semolle go ira ya. So I'm here thinking for the two panelists, Mr. Batai le Maseveho, in the efforts tse leng gore ba di dira to try and bring this issue ya gender equity to life and to have the society you know, adopt it as well. What efforts are they putting in place, or what efforts are being put in place to make sure that while we are busy designing policies, kana policy ga ya harologane thata le go create molao, so ite be nna iketse yaanong we are saying ga se re ira yana yaanong re ira yana, but we need to know that a policy to be implemented, it needs to be adopted. What are we doing, kana what in the different structures what are they doing to make sure gore as they are introducing these policies, they are also helping people to understand the need ya gore ke eng go tshwanela gore go nne issue tsa gender equity, and what is it that is being done to bring to life the fact that it's not an issue ya go thankgola borre go tsena bomme, but it's an issue of actually bringing and changing the mind shift wa gore motho wa mme a nna le bela ko tlase to a level ya lekanang le rre, and we are okay with it.
Thank you. Lily jotted down and we'll take them. Any other comment, another question? Thank you, Mehola.
Okay, I want to make the last comment. I might leave Eddie because wrong because of network. I wanted to join through a strong network. This is a personal observation, and personally, it's an approach that I would like, and I think we should take, where we don't see women and girls issues as things that needs to be celebrated only on certain days. And Maseveho has already talked about how the BNEC would like to embed it within the KPI so that it becomes part of performance management and review. So that Women's Day or Women's Month doesn't become a day where we only talk about our issues and challenges, but it's sort of a day and a month of unveiling all the efforts and the contribution and the impact and the achievement that have been done throughout and consistently by different organizations. That's the approach that I would like us to take, and I'm happy with the way Maseveho has put it in terms of the approach that BNEC is taking.
Thank you so much. But I also want us to look into, if you look at the last report, Women in Sport, you only have 19.5% of women in leadership positions So 19.5 kana is super hela gore it's ke number e ko tlase. I know me ka tsenge Thidani o super gore we should also celebrate and unveil the work that we've done. But it's a process. If you look at month of March, ke Women's Month, April 6 ke Day of Sport and Development and Peace, Day of Children Against Child Abuse on April. Maybe if you more sporting reka also to learn how to commemoration is totally very to observe. We'll see what here is a celebratory one. Here is to talk against abuse. Here to talk about say harassment. This one is 16 days against DB. So in that case, it's only a day of the girl child. In that case, we could be able to talk about celebrating what we've done and also talking about the challenges because we all have those days lined up. So the comment before saying but again, I appreciate what you said, and she was also encouraging us to unveil the work that we've done. I think that's what you did, and that's what Rabatai did, which is something that we can consider going forward. But as another comment that I would want you to respond to another Rabatai. Hello, Masebeho. Emma.
I was cut off for a little bit. I think I lost network there for a while.
Oh.
You wanted me to respond to something? Sorry, I missed what you said.
She was making a comment. I think it was based on.
Okay. No,
Emma.
I had her comments, and thank you very much for that comment. She mentioned something that is, I think Rabatai also referred to it. Perception management and changing perceptions, and it's like changing a whole culture. And if those people who have studied culture will tell you that culture you don't change overnight. And I know that as women, we will also argue that, but we have not been doing this overnight. We've been talking about advocacy for the longest time. Our grandmothers were doing it. Our great-grandmothers were doing it. We've made significant strides, but we still have to deal with how do we change mindsets, how do we change realities. And I really want to recognize and applaud Rabatai for being very, very honest in his interpretation of what happened with a campaign that was intended to challenge stereotypes. I mean, I choose to challenge should have happened in 2017 because Bokgoni Fela was really about that. I choose to challenge. And I always say that patriarchy is one of the most organized and oiled machines that you can ever get. And I like the fact that they use fear to actually organize and get themselves together, because we saw that the men really got together and they organized and they were able to, at the end of the day, succeed. But we also were able to make great strides because we were bold and intentional and shocking to the systems. Yes, men think in blocks, as has been said. I'm very happy to learn that men think in blocks. But sometimes we have to shock the system. And Bokgoni Fela was really meant to shock the system. And we saw that the impact of it was we were able for the first time to get more women into leadership. I think we did more education then on the need to look at women purely from an ability point of view, from a leadership perspective. I mean, it's the same as COVID. COVID has pushed us and just rushed us into the fourth industrial revolution. I mean, the investment that we've made in terms of the use of technology in the past year, it's amazing, and that's what we need to do as women and as, not just as a society, to shock the system into accepting that the issue of women and equity is something that is going to happen. And for me, I always refer to the Commonwealth movement right now. They are pushing for 50-50 participation at the next Commonwealth Games, and they're very intentional about that. So we need to take learning from that and also push it here in Botswana. I like the idea of working towards building blocks, not just looking at commemorations days from a purely commemorative point of view, but build blocks towards not just the women celebratory days, but other key days that are there. They recognize to say, let's pause and reflect on how we have done on issues of equity, not just on those national days that are reserved for women. Because as I keep saying, if we restrict the gender equity thing to being pushed by women, we are not going to win the fight. It has to come to a point where it becomes very fluid and very easy for a man leader to be able to see the importance of looking at issues of equity in the day-to-day business. Thanks.
Emma, thank you. Robert, hi. Women are coming forward in karate. I think karate na remember in this one soft ball. They've been there. I won't mention a lot. There are a lot of names that I can think of right now. Are they coming forward or they have interest in leading? If they are you giving them the space or are you working with them? If not, if they're not coming up forward, what do you think could be the challenges that aiming happily karate?
Oh, thank you very much. But before that, let me touch base into issue in Halabe talked about we can come up with policies, but there will always be a gap between policies and the actual implementation on the ground, which is very important for us, or very imperative for us to come up with change management frameworks. How do we change the issues of culture? How do we communicate with people to accept that ladies, the female should be part of the leadership? I think it's very important. We have always been coming up with policies and policies and policies, but that are failing to be implemented. Just like in the corporate world, when you come up with projects and you want to implement them, but there's no change management, then it becomes something else. I think it's something that we have to put into sport, to put a bit of professionalism into how we do sports in Botswana. You mentioned the issue of to Samokarati. We are trying to bring them back. We have brought some back that are serving into our committees. Lots of them, I can remember 5 at the moment. By the way, they used to participate before 2000. They were participating. We have brought them back. They're serving in the committees. Some of them they are chairing those committees.
Thank you so much. Mewa ba support Rabatai.
Emma.
Kana thebi buela thoba song hanano wena o teng re di khandi mo go ena thata thata. And unfortunately you are the only rekela lo mese gone.
Emma, no, we are supporting them. We are giving them all the support and the encouragement, and we try by all means to understand issues from their perspective.
So, what does it mean to you? Choose to challenge. Will it rebatai? Will President Boka as an individual? What does that seem to you? In conclusion.
But thank you very much. It means that we should continue to challenge the status quo the way it is. I think we are halfway through at the Botswana Karate Association, but the work is not yet done. We should continue to empower the ladies to a level that they should be able to serve as presidents of the Botswana Karate Association.
I think to be happy in your defense, Tsosi dirang motswelle hela ntse yalo mme I would wish gore o share maela a wa dirang le other national associations, and also like Kenesa Nagwa, you need to give feedback to gore how do you want to be assisted by Women in Sport Botswana, by BNC and by BNOC. Masebeko, what does the theme choose to challenge mean to you as the vice chairperson ya body ya BNC and gore kona le borra ba bantsi. And again the research has shown gore and impact when it comes to women issues. At 42%. Are you 2 or 3? You are not. But sorry, and you are not even at 42%. You are not, right? No. The issues BNC wants to hear, but when you talk about women's issues, there's going to be challenge because so you will need men as allies to help you push the agenda. Women's especially Wasbo. You need to restructure Wasbo. You need men to be on your side. So what does choose to challenge mean to you as the vice chairperson?
I think for me, choose to challenge is it's a theme that resonates very well with me. It's a theme that speaks to allowing yourself to be in an uncomfortable space and allowing the people around you to understand why you are putting yourself in an uncomfortable space. And as the vice chairperson of the sports commission, you've pointed it out, Khami, 3 out of 11 is a very small number, and the 42% has been mentioned to be able to make a difference is probably what science says. I think for me, the fact that I go into a board meeting and I am not hesitant to challenge whatever is on the table, I'm not shy to go at it alone if need be. What we do as the women in the committee is that we introspect. We take a moment to question ourselves, to reflect on the issues before we go into a board meeting, for instance, or we go into discussions, so that we are able to align. But the other thing that we are very clear to us to say, we don't necessarily have to agree as the women. We don't go there to agree. We go there to pursue what we believe is in the best interest of sports, and if that means differing, so be it. And if that means at some point we'll find ourselves in a scenario where we need to not to disagree, to push an agenda, so be it. So we're trying to be very honest with each other to say we don't have to agree with each other, but we have to remember that we are a minority in the board, and that we have to push the agenda, but not necessarily just by coming to there and just sitting there and not expressing our views. We go in there and express our views as honest to ourselves as we can be, unapologetic. And I do know that, and I'm very glad to know about the men thinking in blocks, and it actually arms us. It gives us more ammunition to know how do we move them from one block to the next. Because I think for us to actually get anywhere, we have to get into the minds of men and to know what men think, for us to be able to get them to move towards how we want to position the gender issue. So for me, Choose to Challenge is about being bold. It's about, if need be, going on the terrain alone and hoping that you can convince a few more people to come along with you. Thanks.
But do you see the impact of doing that? Because the most important thing is to make an impact and to have results. Do you see impact of doing that, and do you see the impact of body to work with the men?
I think we are making strides, Hami. Okay. I think our voice is heard, and I think that we are getting to a point where we are sitting at that table as equals, and people do not see Masebeho, or they just see the newlywed Makati Senge, or they see Tebuko, the other Tebuko. They see women leaders sitting there who have an opinion, but most important, they recognize that we are talented in what we do. They recognize that we bring exceptional skills to the board. So that for me is very important, because they do know that we process very unique skills, and they tap on those skills that as and when required.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for with a bang, both of you, because bottom line is we still need to advance this. But I also want to say, Women in Sport Botswana has started this in 1994. It's a long way. We'd want to next time tangible results. We can now say we've moved from 19.5% to something better. We've moved from 14.4% media coverage of women in sports to something better. We to numbers because that is what we would expect from Women in Sport Botswana, from BNSC, and from the leadership in national sports associations. Sending a message, he's regretting not to be here. He really wanted to honor women in sports. He really wanted to honor volunteers, Babamo Sporting. He really wanted to use his office to show the work that they've been doing. So he had a lot of interest to be here. He wanted to be here. Maybe because there are so many things the eye opening, then we can come back and be able to bring on board. Thank you, Mayor Tata. Thank you, Mayor Ravele. Thank you, Makosi, Mahaolape. Tepo Batai, thank you so much, Ma Makene Sakati Sengetani. Thank you, Me Jaime Mompe. Thank you, Tuli, for co-hosting with me. That was great of you. You are now during tourism. How then I you take over from Mutnari Hulerita almost spotting. How wanna buy almost spotting? Caleb, if there's any comment, you have 1 second to say it. Otherwise, thank you so much.
I think I would like to also end by applauding conversations with Tsosi. This is something that they've been pursuing for a long time now, and they're not giving up. And small steps lead to greatness. They must not deter. These conversations are very critical. They are conversations that we need to have, and you'll have people who take away critical things to implement from these conversations. So a big round of applause to Conversations with Tsosi for continuing to persevere with these conversations and make sure that they become a part of our existence. Thank you.
And thank you to Hub TV. We are only here because of the new curfew. Otherwise, you could be go to doing. But thank you to Hub TV as well for hosting the open discussion for us, because it makes it easy for a lot of people to join in. Thank you so much, and thank you for both of you for agreeing to being here. How it's bold of you to come and talk, because sometimes we put on a spotlight like this. It's not easy, and people think but you took it very well, and you answered very well, and I think we learned a lot from you, and we are happy that BNS is doing something and Karate is doing something. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.